too. You started slinging coke and got the dopest pair of shoes. But yo, this house just ain't a home since our father hit the bottle and our mother hit the road. Time is something they say, never understand it till it slips away. And looking back, I think you knew I wanted to be just like you. If I
Okay, we are live. I'm looking at audio levels and just to see how things are going through. I think I'm pretty much caught up with my morning, got everything set up. I hope. How are my audio levels? Okay. And I was going to leave a post in there, but I won't try and steal any of Brandon Bishop's viewers or anything else by announcing anything in there. How are my audio levels? And how's everybody doing? I've got the of course I'm in um my studio. I don't have the new studio set up quite yet. I'm still moving things around and can do just about one system at a time. We've seen them all 60 sized systems um, that I've had up here recently on videos. And then all of the PS2s, complete PS2s, or that I got um, from Edgar Digital in Las Cruces, New Mexico, are the same case style as the small 60. I got the three towers of this configuration all in one batch. A Mall 60, which is based on a 286 CPU, 10 megahertz. The Mall 65SX, which is based on a 386SX CPU at 16 megahertz, and a Model 80 Type 3, which is the highest level of the Model 80 planar that without necessarily talking the system board upgrade or anything like that, the so-called AXX submodel. That's a 386DX at 25 megahertz. And so I'll be getting those out. I may do a live stream covering those a little bit later today, possibly. And I'm getting warnings about the YouTube audio stream bit rate. I don't care if everything sounds okay. Now the 65S SX needs to have somebody pulled the non-volatile RAM and then they pulled the RAM memory from it. Which I have extra of those modules anyway, that I can go through and work on to get that going. And then the Model 80 Type 3, and they've got different levels in there. All of them were relatively dirty. You can see the outside of this case as it is. And so I'll get opening the thing up. I have a lot of parts standing by. I've got my cleaning supplies. I may have to get like a screwdriver or something else, possibly. And we can use, I've already got the, it's already marked me a little bit for working on it. I've got hand sanitizer here that is alcohol based and will take this off pretty good. Now all sorts of stuff. I have my Mall 60 planers off screen in case even that looks bad. I've got a hard drive carrier. I've got power supplies that I even probably have to test to make sure that are good. Let me get off the. Let me get off that webcam so I can get that I know that I've got the full field of view here. And I've got new batteries. I have the parallel port postcode reader. And I've got just out of view here cables and the MFM controllers I tested as good before. So, I mean, a mouse, power connections for the drive, all sorts of stuff. Now you can see this cover, and I pulled the 3 covers off previously, of course, and to looking at the systems when I got them, and then when I got them home just to look at some stuff, and you can see, you know, the gooey box stuff. I don't know if this is necessarily the cover that was originally, matched to this particular Mall 60, but all 3 were just about the same anyway. And I guess you can see green corrosion in here. The foam that's normally on here, thankfully, has pretty much gone away. And so I'm going to go through and set that all the way in the back. Okay, I've got other isopropyl alcohol here if I have to. And so I wanted to actually show the external side, even the top view of this as well. I can kind of work with things to. There's the top of it. And the back looks pretty good. That's the far side. That's not too bad. And then let's look at the front. The front looks pretty good too. And this is, let's do the badge first. Mall 60, and sorry for being off angle. And then the label looks like it's obliterated there. But this would normally be, set this heavy thing back down. See, I'm getting more of that degraded foam, the sticky stuff. Ultimately, this looks like with the MFM controller, looks to be a 8560-041, you know, the MFM controller. Now, I want everybody to take a look at this MFM controller. It's got a bit of foam on there. It looks like the connectors. I mean, I went through and I pulled this out of the system. I don't think this was in the top slot, but it could have been. It could have been. Normally, this would be right below the drive cage. And it looks like the cables were connected. In fact, it was funny because I think this one was actually where it was connected to this outboard connection. And because those are relatively clean. And so you'll notice I went through and I swiped across the 8051 AH microcontroller just because I wanted to make sure the versioning and everything else, and that's standard, as we saw on my MFM controllers. Now I do have brushes, and I'll probably go through it. I can brush that because certainly that looks pretty horrible. But I probably will, even in this case, even with the corrosion on the connector. Let's look at the back. This would have been on the underside. And I've got different MFM controllers I tested good previously that I'll probably use instead, even if I'm able to brush a lot of this stuff and get it cleaner. And of course, I'll test it in the end. And this is out of the circuit areas, and it's not really conductive, electrically conductive foam or anything like that. But as I made the observation, of course, in particular with the top of the power supply is not really necessarily visible either, but it's pretty dusty in there. There's luckily no vents or anything else on the top of these power supplies. It would be effectively, this is a, effectively a replacement power supply that I've got on hand. The the grab strap is broken at one end, but this power supply, you shouldn't have to test this. It should work. Although I've had it sitting around, and I probably should test these at some point. But it doesn't have any venting at the top of this. It's just a flat surface that dust, in this case, can accumulate. One of the things for the Mul 60, 65SX, and Mul 80 is that the fan for the power supply is right here as well. And it's known for getting dust in this area around the diskette drives and things like that. The IBM did go through and they initially released these 40-pin edge connector diskette drives. And it's a straight 1-for-1 diskette drive cable that goes, and it has these connectors captive, and they're spring loaded to release the diskette drives if there's two of them. Of course, one in this instance, and it's got the it looks like it's got adjustment for the bay adapter. This piece is rusted here. I really doubt if this diskette drive will work, but I've got spare that can pull off that I do know works. I do have a reference diskette for that. The drive cage is rusted. The upper surface, I guess that's got the ground strapped on there correctly. But I've got other drive cages. If I have to go through, I'll pull out a screwdriver and I can swap that out if I have to. The bottom of the case, continuing on with the vertical surfaces, that's really bad. There's green corrosion level. It's got a battery in there. I don't think any of these wires are fully corroded. They should have fresh batteries to put in there. But I'll have to look at that. But cleaning out the bottom of the case, there's a lot of debris and everything else, pieces of foam that thankfully in this case, they're hardened. It's past the stage. It's lost all the gooey nature of it. And now the planer being the vertical item in here looks to be pretty good. There's not necessarily, there is dust on horizontal surfaces like the bus connections, the edges of chips. I can see dust. With the brushes, that should be fairly easy to go through and to work with. But this thing is looks pretty ugly. And so we're going to find out how functional this is. Now, the hard drive, I'm not familiar with the type here, and we'll probably go through and pull the hard drive. And as it happens, of course, I'm in black clothing, which shows dust like crazy. I didn't necessarily dress appropriately for this. but we can probably just start working through and starting to clean this up a little bit. And I'll have to see on the clock. I do have an engagement after immediately following this that seeing that is okay, so that's all the way left. That's not even clamped down on that side, on the upper side. The lower side I loosened. These forward ones are open. I mean, I guess I could have some like WD-40 and stuff like that around to go through. There's more foam that's dropping as I go through. The drive is still in there kind of tight. Now this has a separate power lead. I need to disconnect that. I'll just disconnect it at that end. Okay. I forget it's got the retainers. Normally these pop off from the retainers, but it's got a separate leads off of the power for the hard drive. You know, does a hard drive, I mean, and that's been on the underside. So that is fine. Looks pretty clean. Let's do a close-up of that. In fact, if I could get it right side up, there's your terminating resistor. We talked about those in the, or I talked about those in the recording of one of the recordings last night. IBM, French and Spanish. I'm hooking. Warranty seal is void if it's broken. Let's go through and let's pull the cables off of that. Let's pull the power cable, and that's a shorter lead for the primary drive. Okay. So that's a model WD-12. And I'm thinking that still would likely be, I don't see any defect map. I don't, labeling. I don't see any type number. I could probably look up on the pocket reference or something like that to check the capacity, but see that, and that ground strap in this case was not used. I don't know if I necessarily need to pull that drive cage, going through and cleaning underneath, because that is what I just want to kind of see from the perspective, the foam. Like I say, at least the foam, in a lot of this instance, is lost. It's sticky. There is a few clinging pieces. But the planer looks really good. And so and I should have had a trash can around here as well. Once I brushed all this. And so, like I say, I don't know, and I can probably do an alcohol battery. I don't think that that's from that lithium battery. It seems like it was higher on the case, and there was, was that maybe, hopefully it wouldn't be like power supply related. And I didn't put the legs out for this as well to stabilize it really necessarily. That's probably fine. And not that this, in the lower part of the case, obstructs anything. It just, but just to go through and to get it cleared out. And it's got the 256 KB SIMs in it. The motherboard, I mean, that looks pretty good for all that, for all the how this case looks otherwise, how these drive cages look, the diskette drive cage, the hard drive carrier. I've got enough of the loose dust, and I have other brushes here. Let's go through, make things dirty. I mean, this will be worth testing at some point. Hopefully it wasn't an operation with this level. I mean, the dust level can get so thick that it gets conductive. And certainly in this case, I mean, I've added moisture. I've had the swamp cooler on. You don't want to get static discharge from your brush, like a nylon brush going. Now this could be cleaned probably in a solution. Otherwise, I mean, distilled water and then dried out, and then followed up with isopropyl alcohol. And I apologize, I'm off screen. My lips are not showing, so it's probably hard for Hugh to know, or to know what I'm saying, at least. I need to go through and caption these. I don't know if Google goes through and auto captions the live streams. They should be able to do that fairly quickly. I'm gonna have a dirty bench after this. So what I'll do is I will get back on screen. I will get my okay. Nope, I don't want that. I want. Okay, so I'm going to put this in live stream. Yeah, toner vac, and I need a toner vac because I do have even a copy machine in here that I would hope I'd never have a toner explosion. That's a little, yeah, I could have a little vacuum around, and years ago I used to have a vacuum that was dealt with these little smaller situations of vacuuming up stuff and putting stuff around. Now, I put the link in there. Yeah, whether I find a dinosaur in there or not. So I've put the link in there for the Mall 60 planer. I can get to where I can interact with it. Like I say, we figured out that this is probably an 8560-041 by the drive and by the controller that's in there. Although it was really kind of strange because I think it was plugged in for the D drive, the secondary drive. And I don't know if even the pictures are from me in this case, but there is the planer. And of course, all the components. Now, this would be where that left edge is the lower portion of the planer. And people can go to that page if they want to kind of check that out a little bit. Now on, so these are the 256 KB Sims. Again, I probably want to get, okay, where's my mouse? Okay. So I'll get my, okay. So I'll get back on, and this is the 256 KB Sims. It's got some of the VGA components and VRAM up in here. Of course, the power connector, and these actually have a little bit of, it's got a little shield over the top of it. And these look very similar to what the IBM PC prototype motherboard had for these connectors. And the, of course, the microchannel slots, slot 1 at the bottom up to 8 at the top, just right below the drive cage. And normally the MFM controller is in that top slot, as it were. And then we have the 286 CPU. There's the ROM, the BIOS. It's going to be 4 chips. And that has, the Mul 60 has both the C BIOS, or the compatibility BIOS, plus the A BIOS, or the advanced BIOS for things like OS2, effectively. And then we have the socket for the 80287, the Mathco processor, the bottom here. Now, this is a minimalistic system. We have the drive controller pulled. I can go through and I can work with the battery and check it in just a moment here. But what I'd like to do, we're going to do, this is testing for the power supply and the motherboard functionality. I mean, power supply being a very critical aspect. And it looks like all my connectors are in relatively good shape. I'm putting my arm across the top and all that mess on the top. Okay. So we could maybe, I'll have to see if a if I need a little lead for this, or whether, now this is necessarily is effectively upside down, and it's got a lot of light coming into the room here. I may have to go through and shield this, or I think my lead here is a little bit. Yeah, I could think I can, maybe that'll work with it good enough. And then, of course, this is the parallel port. Then the serial port is down below, and then it's got the VGA port below that. And it'd even be great if I had some, right what I need. Okay. And we'll have to see how dirty this case is. We don't want to short the backside of this PCB out or anything like that. Yeah, tape is not. I don't want to stay. And I realize things like duct tape and things like that would be a lot more appropriate in this situation. Okay, so just looking to grab VGA. And the smoke test, as UXW Bill and others would say. Okay. Now, there are portions of the power supply that are live when a power cable is connected to it. I didn't hear any other things. I could have gone through and I could have blown out the power supply. Doesn't look that dusty, and this is set out in the I found these outside in the Las Cruces heat, and hopefully the cases were closed or something else like that, but I mean, it could very well be enough heat to damage capacitors and other things in there. Smoke test. Okay. Nothing happened for the power supply switch to go on. So probably I'm going to make sure all the stuff is seated. Okay, so nothing with the power supply. I don't know if I probably have to pull the front cover of this. Okay. And it's nylon strap. It's designed for being a pull designed to be able to pull. Okay. And I could go through and even detach that battery, but why is this tight? Okay, and I could say that even has that A. That front cover looks pretty good. I mean, it's got a little bit of that black goo, but that'll the isopropyl alcohol will cut that. Okay. Oh, and I meant to disconnect the power prior to pulling the power supply out. We get to look at there, we get to see the top of it. You know, that top shroud is loose from it, but there's that. And I can go through and open that up at some later point. I'm hoping that the power supply, this power supply that I've had around, I'm hoping that that is good. I would hope that there would not be any other occasion that I would have that around. Now, these can be tested out of case as well. And I have the planers. I could even, you know, bench a planer effectively. I just want to get a couple screws in there to kind of retain where it's supposed to be. So we've replaced a power supply so far. And I'm going to sit here and fumble. I mean, I think I've got that seated now. Okay. So yeah, probably being out in the heat cooked that power supply. Okay. So smoke test 2. Okay, we have working. Okay. I'll get myself on the screen here. 1, 2, 161 or 162, 163. It's relatively expected. We didn't get a diskette drive error or anything like that, but it's not continuing. It's not giving us any other, and it stopped at the 7. The 7-1 passed. In fact, I need to. Okay. So I'll switch over. And I realize that that's really hard. Well, it's readable enough. The 7172. So it's past the postcode 71. It's over on the left, and it's halted on the 72 code. I don't want to get my remotes dirty or anything like that. So I'm going to go through. We heard the beeps. I want to go through and okay. So let's check the battery voltage. And I'll take off from the AC level. And I realize I'm still on the video capture. So this is 1.99 volts for the battery that's in there, that was in there. I've got a fresh one that's 6.53. Now, for this, I mean, it's got video displayed. It is obviously halted. It didn't go through. It didn't drop us into ROM basic. Okay. Didn't give us a diskette drive error. Now, I don't know what the 7.2 postcode is off the top of my head. And I don't hear any diskette drive trying to seek. Okay. Okay. Okay, I did see the okay. So let's see if this will give us like a diskette drive error. Okay, so it gave us a 601, which is diskette drive. Okay. Now, I didn't hear this drive try and seek or anything else. I wouldn't know whether this whether the diskette drive is going to be in any workable condition. Boy, that is rough for how that wants to. I mean, normally I would love to see this throw it into ROM basic or something, you know, of it being able to get through. Okay, so what we let's get on the that view. So I could go through and I could even swap. I mean, I have all 60 planers at work, and so the you know, that might be it might be something on the motherboard. I would need to probably examine the BIOS. I mean, I'm sure Major Tom would go through and make short work of that as well. Um, I don't know if there'd be for the training site. There's a lot of systems, and Roger down in Las Cruces, as well as up north in the Albuquerque area and things like that. The computer surplus places, they had equipment from the Sandia National Labs. Of course, a lot of time they wouldn't have had the hard drive. Those guys are a little bit more prone to security at an earlier date than others. And so the I wouldn't expect it would have had the hard drive or anything like that. So let's go through. As I say, I could and of course I realize we're coming up 50 minutes. I said I had the otherwise I had the obligations today. I'm probably going to go through. My technician level is to swap parts, and I probably want to go through and I think I'm going to go through just for under an hour of the live stream with the other commitment, and I want to resume a live stream later on or have a completion of this. Of course, then I want to get onto the 65SX and the Model 80 as well. But you know, the technician level in me says swap the planer. If it's halting on that, it's not getting to ROM basic. We want to get to that basic level, and I've got the spare planers. I can investigate what that postcode 72 is later on, and that'll give me a chance when I pull the drive cage out of here a later time, and I'll do that. I can do that live stream. I can swap the planer. That'll give me the opportunity to switch, you know, to clean out the system as well, and to at least get the dust and everything else and get a little bit better, you know, maybe even wipe down the exterior of the enough of the case so it stops transferring material to me, because my, you know, that's my fingers and stuff like that. But we've got a little bit of reaction out of it, and we can figure out why postcode 72 is halting it later on. We've got video, got everything else, and that's a relatively late postcode. So, and it counted all the RAM correctly. The CPU seems like it's operating. There's no checksum error for the BIOS. anything like a bit rot. And so I want to go through and I want to swap the planers. I'll do that at a point later on to get cleaned up. It'll be ultimately, it'll probably be afternoon for me, but to go through and do that. And I mean, I realize I'm swapping everything in the case anyway, that it'll go through and I'm trying to clean my hands with the hand sanitizer, the alcohol-based hand sanitizer. But that'll, since I'm replacing everything, I mean, I'm sure I'll have a working system in the end, and I'll be pulling everything apart, putting things actually in kind of that case, as it were. But this is going to be a to be continue, and we'll go through and I'm sure we'll get with swapping other parts, I'm sure we'll get a working Mul 60 in the end. And I want to go through and I want to work with that hard drive beyond the other MFM drives. And we'll have to see if that diskette drive works. If not, I have a replacement for it. So I'll start plugging away at that. But I want to go through, it's been what I consider to be a very good live stream. I appreciate the comments that are left in there in the chat. Seems like we've had pretty good viewership and things like that. And I've covered most of the comments. We just seen how it doesn't get to anything about pressing the F1 key of going through. And I've tried to, I realized for you here that my face is not commonly on camera. So it's hard to read lips from there and things like that too. I want to get some sort of subtitling or something like that, and especially something that is on the that is on the the fly at it's real time, that you can see some sort of subtitling to what I'm saying. But this is a to be continued. I'll try and give as much advance notice. Just watch for something a little bit later on, maybe in a few hours, for me to go through and continue with this machine. Once we get it working, we can certainly move on to the 65SX or that model 80 Type 3 planer, and going through and doing more cleanup and getting dirty again here. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, but I'm just going to go through and close the stream for now to say thanks for tuning in. This is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Okay.